This is my first time giving this tour, so you have to pardon me if I look at my cheat sheet.
Allowed to, well, walk the house would there have been artwork in the house, like paintings and things like that?
There would have been some artwork, but as you can see, there's not really much empty wall space to put it up on. So it's, you know, you really have to be happy with Wright and his designs because you're surrounded by it, and it's very hard to personalize it or change it.
None of the moldings, they're all square. There's nothing rounded out.
Yeah, and this is what Wright called working in the nature of the material. You may have heard that term applied to him. The oak, this is all red oak in the house, and this red oak has this quality when it's stained that looks like this. And so that's the nature of the material, to look that way, and that's sufficient decoration. You don't have to carve it, you don't have to do any really wild things to it. You can really just have these basic rectilinear forms. You can manipulate it somewhat like in the screens over these soffit lights, but really it's the material itself that is the decoration. And he uses that a lot, that idea a lot in his buildings. But he wasn't quite at the place yet where he was willing to expose the structure to us to sort of show us that. That's still hidden. And another piece of technology I want to show you that is new, and this is, I'm not supposed to do this, but this door you see is plywood. And if you can imagine, if you've just spent the equivalent of $2 million in today's money on a house and your architect proudly opens this and says, "Look, it's plywood," you'd probably be really angry because why is there plywood in my $2 million house? But this was a relatively new material at the time. Wright was really excited about new things like this, so I'm going to put it in there and try it out. And actually it works really well because it's inexpensive. It's got the red oak veneer on it, so it looks like everything else. But because it's plywood, it's very dimensionally stable. It's not going to warp very easily. It's not going to bend and twist like a thinner piece of solid wood might have. So it had some practical value. I think Wright just did it for the, you know, this is a new material. I want to see what it does, and my client's going to pay for it. And he could get away with that kind of thing. Well, you can tell that we've restored this end of the dining room to look the way it did originally. The wood has been refinished. The plaster was torn down, or the plaster was, where it had degraded, it was torn out and replaced with plaster that was very close to the original. The original, all the layers of paint were taken off to get back to the original surface as much as we could, and then the original colors restored. And you can see the color down here, sort of this very light brown, and then up in this interstitial space is sort of a salmon color, and on the ceiling is a tan color. And that tan color is very similar on the ceiling to the color we saw outside on the roof on that soffit. And so these colors, now that they're being reestablished, start to bring the different ideas of the house, the different parts of the house together really well. And you can see this is a much richer color experience and is much nicer than this white. A lot of people see the white and they think this is original because they may mistake this as being a modernist house. But this is not a modernist house, it's a prairie house. And Wright had not really begun to embrace anything of modernism at this point in his career. And that is one of the two original wall sconces we have. It's actually missing a few little pieces of glass, but at least the bronze part of it, the armature, you can see is there. And we're going to have a bunch of those remade. They're going to remake enough to complete this part of the dining room, so they'll have 5 or 6 more made. There's also supposed to be a square table with 4 chairs around it in the prow that would have been sort of a breakfast nook, and we're going to have that rebuilt as well. And all the windows in this part of the house have also been conserved. And when they do the conservation work for the windows, they reuse all the glass and all the metal as much as they possibly can. Again, reusing as much of the original fabric of the house as possible. Now in this part of the house, in the dining room, you may recognize this picture, this dining table and chairs. These are the original dining table and chairs. And it would have been right along here. And these high-back chairs are meant to create a wall around the table so you can have a little more intimacy for your meals out of this big space. And these corner posts have electric lanterns built into them, which were plugged into outlets in the floor so that you could just have those lanterns turned on and some candles on the table. You could turn out all these lights in this part of the house, and the light and the chairs create this intimate feeling you want. This chair also had a couple interesting things. There was, or the table rather, Where Mr. Robie sat at this end, there was an electric switch that turned the lanterns on. And where Mrs. Robie sat, there was a switch in the floor that she could activate with her foot to call the servants to come in and clear the table away and bring the next course in. So Wright was sort of always thinking about this stuff and trying stuff out and seeing how can we make things better. Instead of having bell pulls and stuff, there was a switch in the floor, there were phones around the house so you could call the servants. And, you know, again, this is Wright just trying out new stuff and seeing what works. There's supposed to be a break front built in against this wall that was torn out at some point, so we'll have to rebuild that. You can see it in a couple of the photographs over there. You can also see how dark the walls are, just to give you a greater sense of how this will look once all those colors are reestablished.
Are these the original carpets?
These are reproductions, and I don't know if these are going to be the colors we'll eventually see or not, but this is what we have right now, so this is what we're using. Yeah. Okay, well, the next thing we're going to do is go down this back hallway, and you'll get to the left, you'll see the row of switches, some of which still control the lights in here, but they're new. It's all new wiring, so don't worry about that. And then to your left, you'll see the guest bedroom, and then we're going to turn right and go into the kitchen. We can go in the kitchen? Okay, good. And you'll see the stairs that go to the third floor where I can't take you, and along the baseboard, you'll also see one of the outlets for the central vacuum system. And there's two little switches at the bottom of the stairs that are behind this wall, and we think they controlled the batteries for the intercom system. That was how the intercom system was powered originally, but they're not quite sure what those do yet. So let's go through there, and we'll end up in the kitchen. Also, to get into the kitchen, you have to step down and then step up, so just be careful right through there.